Oh, Ellie,
Yes.
is that you under Andy's name?
I have to rename myself every time I use Zoom.
I got so nervous when I saw it in the waiting room and I was like, is something going on that I don't know about?
No. The
I'm
Zoom
glad-
account is under his name. And for some reason, every time I join a Zoom meeting, it pops up his name.
I'm glad to see that it's you.
Just me. Sorry.
No. I was like, he's not on the agenda. What's going on?
No.
Hi.
You had meetings.
Yeah,
Thought you did.
I know. Well, today we're doing it here. All right. See you later. Does anyone know how to change the settings so everyone just gets in?
I think you can't. I think that
Oh,
you have to enter the
okay.
passcode, right?
I think it has to do with back-end settings before you start the meeting.
Mhm.
Oh, I don't set it up. They set it up and then I log in, but I had to admit everyone.
Yeah. The
Oh.
waiting room. That's to try to prevent disruptive Zoom attendees.
What if the disruptive Zoom attendees are in your meeting
Yeah,
invited?
really, they're there already.
You kick them out. You have the control as the host. You get to just kick
Aaron's
people
not
out.
here yet, so you never know. All right. Oh, here. Oh my God. Okay. Okay.
Hello. How you feeling?
Today I'm better. Today was like the first day I started to kind of feel better, but I don't know. I didn't have COVID. I got like a cold and it was like the worst cold I've ever had.
You get it from your boys?
I mean, they've been coughing in my mouth every day since September. So I think it may have just worn down my immune system eventually. They're fine. And then they're fine when I was sick for the past couple of days, but I don't want to give it to anyone. They just jump in your face and just cough.
They're 6, right?
Just like, yeah, they're 6.
They're in your
Hey
face.
guys, I just joined.
Hi.
Hi, Erin. So do we have everyone?
I don't know.
Where's
Oh, Laura?
Yeah, Laura. Excuse me.
You too?
Georgia, how are you feeling? Are you feeling better?
Mute.
Who is that?
Georgia.
Me?
Boy, it's been a long fucking day. Let me tell you.
She's mute.
I can't hear you.
Georgia, you're not muted, but it's
My
very
microphone-
hard to.
Yeah, I know. They have to warm up. My microphones have to warm up. Can you hear me now?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can hear me now. Yeah, I just said I'm still feeling sick.
Ugh.
I have a virus. I've had it for 3 weeks and it's hanging
Oh.
on. Yeah, something. I had COVID. That was nothing, but this is really not nice.
Yeah, I felt the same. I had COVID earlier in the year and it was not a big deal.
Yeah.
Well, I hope my kids didn't come cough in your mouth too.
They didn't. My grandson did though. I think that was the problem.
All right, so it's 7, so we might as well get started. This is
Okay.
all right. So everyone's here. No Laura as of yet. Ellie and Georgia are with us to talk about the pollinator pathway. We have nothing to vote on because we can't vote.
Right.
Anyone have any announcements? I don't have any announcements. Okay, so do you guys want to jump into it? So I don't know, did everyone get a chance to just peek at the resolution?
Yes.
Yeah, looks good.
It looks
I thought it
really
looked
good.
great.
Perfect. I loved it.
Yeah, it was so easy to understand too. I mean, just like each bullet point I thought was really good.
It had a really good flow.
What'd you say?
So do
Awesome
you
to hear.
did you want to have anything you wanted to? So I know we kind of gave some notes about the presentation and then we were going to just go through it again maybe one time before. I don't know if you want to do it or just talk about it or if you wanted to make changes or didn't or whatever you guys want to tell us.
Well, we revised the resolution based on your comments and your notes, Alex. So, I mean, we don't have to give the entire presentation, but if you guys wanted to look at the slides one more time, just to see if they're good, and let you guys know what we've added and what, the topics we intend, the basic outline, if that would be better, or we can just go through the presentation one more time.
I'd sort of like to
Whatever
go
you guys
through
wanna
the,
do.
I'd sort of like to go through the presentation. I did, because I just found out about it this afternoon that it was different, it's supposed to be different. And so I'm sort of struggling with it a bit and I'd like to go through it, just make sure it meets with your approval, what I was going to do.
Guys, I mean, it's fine with me. We would love to.
Okay. I have a question about the resolution. We didn't say specifically in there, I don't believe, that we want the town to add their lands to the pollinator pathway. I don't remember the exact wording, but did you want to change anything in that regard?
There was something that said that as each parcel kind of came into acquiescence with the rules, that it would be added to the pathway.
Oh, okay, that's what I've said. Okay.
Right. I mean, it wasn't
And that's
worded
okay
like that,
with-
but it was
and that's
something
it.
like,
And that's okay with you. Okay.
I think so. Yeah. Did anyone?
He said that resolved that as Woodstock town properties and roadsides are made pollinator friendly, they will be added to the Woodstock pollinator pathway.
I like it.
Okay.
I love it.
All right. So I guess, do you have the ability to share screen? Do you see that?
I have a screen share button. Yep.
Okay. All right. Cause I don't know if I can change it if you don't, but if you want to go ahead, go ahead.
Well, let me just get the presentation teed up and then I will share my screen. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Excellent. I'm going to go to full screen. Who wants to do it? There we go.
Okay. So I'll just start, if that's okay with you all. And my voice is a little
Georgia, just
weird.
let me know when you want me to advance the slides, okay?
Okay, I'll just say next slide. How about that?
Sounds perfect.
Okay. Okay, good. All right. So I'm going to again present it just as if we're before the town board. We'll act like you're the town board. Okay. Okay. So my name is Georgia Asher, and this is Ellie Reese, and we're both from the Woodstock Pollinator Pathway. And we're here this evening to speak in support of the resolution to make Woodstock a pollinator-friendly town. So the Woodstock pollinator pathway, I just want to tell you what that is in case you don't know. We're an organization, we started in 2020, right before the pandemic hit. And our goal is to increase pollinator habitat in the town of Woodstock. Our initial way of doing this was to encourage households to create pollinator habitat in their yards. And we have been very successful in that. We have now over 200 households that have signed up to be part of the pollinator pathway. Our whole project was met with a great enthusiasm by people in the town. So we're very encouraged by that. I want to define a word which I'll use just so you understand what it is. The word habitat. This means, in the case of pollinators, a place where they can find food and shelter and a place to reproduce. So it includes a very particular plants that different pollinators need different plants, and they're usually native plants that they need. And that's what habitat is. It's sort of, well, in our case, we have habitat too. You can think of it this way. We have our houses, we have our communities that supply us with what we need. They supply us with food and, you know, shelter and friends and all this kind of thing. Same thing, animals and plants need habitat too. They need the same thing, but different from us. Okay, so Ellie, next slide. So what are pollinators? A pollinator is an insect or other animal that aids in flowering plant fertilization through moving pollen from one flower to the other. Examples include native bees, honeybees. Now, some people might think that honeybees, they think of those as the pollinators, but they're only a small part of the pollinator picture. We have butterflies, we have moths, hummingbirds, bats, and so forth. There are some examples here on the bottom, pictures of pollinators. There's a hummingbird, a butterfly, and a native bee. In this case, we have a butterfly, which is the Baltimore checker spot. It's a rare native butterfly that had historically not been seen in Woodstock, but now there's a well-established colony at the Catskill Center Soaring Preserve. The reason we see this butterfly here now is because the Catskill Center allowed Thorn Preserve to change from farmland into a meadow habitat. And in that change, there were plants that grew that could support this butterfly. It had very specific plants that it needs, just like you know about monarch butterflies that require milkweed. They can't live without milkweed. The caterpillars can only eat milkweed. They're adapted to that. And that's true of many of the other pollinator species. They require very specific native plants to live on, and that's true. Not milkweed, but others. Okay, and the rusty patch butterfly, bumblebee, is a different story. This was very widespread all across the country, evidently, or at least in this part of the country in the Midwest. And it's lost its habitat and so forth, and it's very, it's on the endangered species list now, National Endangered Species List. You won't find it around here anymore. Okay, next slide, Ellie. Okay, so why are pollinators important? Well, pollination is an essential ecological survival function. The human race is very dependent on the human race and almost all living things depend on the existence of pollinators. 90%, mind you, 90% of the plants on Earth are flowering plants. And this is not, we're not just talking about the flowers in your garden or the wildflowers. We're talking about trees, bushes, grasses. 3/4 of the world's flowering plants and 35% of the world's food crops, including almost all fruit and grain crops, depend on pollinators to reproduce. So they're really important. Without pollinators, you don't have a whole lot of food. You don't have all kinds of trees and grasses and so forth. Pollinators and flowering plants have co-evolved for billions of years to rely on each other for survival. If you take away one, you don't have the other. So if you take away these insects, you don't have the flowering plants anymore. And that's really a huge thing. Flowering plants also aid in carbon sequestration and soil health, so they're really important. Pollinators like native bees are keystone species, meaning they anchor interconnected food webs. Without them, biodiversity is threatened. So Ellie, next slide. Okay, so the food webs, here's the interconnection we're talking about. I don't know if this is very visible, but it shows in the middle birds, and it shows herbivores over here and native plants at the bottom. So what this is talking about is you have all these interdependencies, like between native plants and pollinators, and then you have the birds are dependent on the native plants because they eat seeds that are produced by the plants, but the birds also eat the pollinators themselves, and many times in the forms of caterpillars, which means they're eating moth larvae. They have to have caterpillars to feed their babies because they're this soft, very nutritious food, the caterpillars are. And then you have birds, which are food for larger birds and sometimes for mammals. And you have the pollinators, which are food for reptiles and amphibians. And then you have humans eating the carnivores and birds and so on and so forth. So it's all interconnected. And if you take parts of it away, like you take the insects away, the whole thing can collapse. So that's why it's so important to know the importance of pollinators in the scheme of things. Okay, next slide. Okay, threats to pollinator populations. Human activity has threatened pollinator populations through habitat loss, pesticide use, and a changing climate. These all have caused pollinator decline. And we learned about this in Woodstock a few years ago when we were talking to a moth expert, asking him to show us different species of moths. And he said, oh, you won't see a lot of moths these days, which was a shocking thing to hear because usually there are so many moths, they're just everywhere. So he said to look at the porch light at night, and we did, and my gosh, there were very few moths. And if you look at your car, that's of course during the summer, car windshield on a hot summer day going down the road, you just don't see the bug splats you used to see. So that's anecdotal, but here's some solid scientific proof that locally here in New York State, we've seen a big decline. This 3-year Empire State Native Pollinator Survey, which came out in 2021, found that at least 38% and as many as 60% of the pollinators studied are at risk in New York State. Those are huge, scary numbers. And before that, there was a study in Germany. This shows that it's all over the place, this problem. It showed a 75% decline in all flying insects in the last 25 years. And then there was a US Wildlife Federation, a study that observed a decline of 94.6% in the monarch butterfly population. Okay, so next slide, Ellie. Okay, so fortunately, there are solutions to this. One is we can encourage native plants such as asters, goldenrods, native oak trees, chokecherry, wild strawberry, native sunflower. These are just a few. There are many, many others, and some are actually more productive than others, and you can find this out. We can tell you how that's done. You can leave the leaves for overwintering insect larvae and eggs. You know, don't rake or leaf blow or burn the leaves, because that's where the insects are during the winter. Reduce the lawn. Lawns are actually considered ecological dead spaces because they don't support the food web. They don't support pollinators or other insect life or other, bird life or whatever. One option is to grow a wildflower meadow instead, with beautiful paths mown through it. Avoid pesticides and herbicides and other chemicals, particularly neonicotinoid pesticides, and manage invasive plants which outcompete native plants. We have information on that, how to do that. That's on our Woodstock Pollinator Pathway website. Okay, next slide. Okay, so here are some pictures of wildflower meadows with mown paths through them that are very beautiful. The one on the right with the mountains is Thorn Preserve right here in Woodstock. So I'd like to mention one other thing, which is the resolution that we're presenting is based on a resolution passed by Ulster County in 2019 to make Ulster County pollinator friendly. There's also been a resolution passed by Marbletown, and then other resolutions to help monarch butterflies passed by other towns. So this is something that is very much in the air these days in this part of New York State. Okay, so Ellie Reese will tell you now more about the Woodstock Pollinator Pathway.
Thanks so much, Georgia. So as Georgia said, my name is Ellie. I am part of the Woodstock Pollinator Pathway as well as the work for the Woodstock Land Conservancy. So what does the Woodstock Pollinator Pathway do? So the Pollinator Pathway, as the larger project, we are part of a larger umbrella project created in Connecticut. And it's basically a grassroots movement that is focusing on creating closely connected pollinator-friendly properties and continuing the growth of what was considered a pathway by creating these closely connected pollinator-friendly properties. And the way that we do this is by encouraging individual property owners as well as other organizations and municipalities, now municipalities, to commit to using pollinator-friendly landscaping practices. We do this in a whole bunch of different ways, but mostly it's about awareness raising and education. We offer an enormous amount of educational programs as well as workshops and events that really assist us in achieving these goals. We have offered, I think, about a dozen virtual programs since our launch of our program in 2020 with wonderfully, and now my little thing's not advancing my slides. Yay. Sorry, guys. Here we go. We've offered quite a bit of programs with not only local ecological landscape designers, but also national leaders in the field. We've accomplished quite a bit since we've started our project in 2020. We have, as Georgia mentioned, over 200 properties that are mapped, and that is what we consider joining the pathway, but we have roughly 450 people participating and adopting ecologically friendly landscaping practices, but have not joined the map. On top of offering programming, we also advise other communities. We have worked with communities such as the town of Olive, and have worked with Walk Hill Valley Land Trust in the towns of New Paltz, Gardner, and Walk Hill, Plattekill, and I can't remember all of the towns that they cover in their service area, but they have started their own pathways. We've advised across the river as well as in other municipalities in Ulster County. Other places have reached out and organizations have reached out to us to get advice on how they can also participate and create a pathway in their location. We have worked with Ulster County and New York State DEP to have the Ashokan Rail Trail be added to our next iteration of the map. So the Ashokan Rail Trail is now an 11.5-mile pollinator pathway because they do not use any pesticides or chemical herbicides, and they also allow native plants to flourish and do practice some invasive species removal. We collaborate with a whole host of organizations. I know that Georgia mentioned very briefly the partners that we partner with on the project. We collaborate very directly with the Catskill Center, with Woodstock Transition, with the Woodstock Environmental Commission, as well as community members that have professional expertise in ecological landscaping. One of the organizations that we partner with, the Catskill Center, also comes with the wonderful expertise of the Catskill Regional Invasive Species Partnership. So we can draw on their expertise and their resources to make sure that we have the most up-to-date information and experts available to us for invasive species removal and advice for both municipalities and for individual homeowners. We have collaborated in a less formal way with organizations like the Woodstock Farm Festival by offering pollinator-focused education throughout the market season, last market season. We are working with the Woodstock Library to create a new pollinator planting at the new library location. And we've also worked with the Woodstock Jewish Congregation in the launch of the program, in the launch of the project in 2020, and they have continued to participate by having their own native plantings on their own property in Saugerties. We have several experts that sit on our steering committee that are ecological landscape experts, one in wetland restoration, one who is just a general expert in native plants of the Catskills. And we also have a bee expert on our committee so that we kind of have a well-rounded group of experts that can advise on a whole host of pollinator related issues. On top of everything else, I'm sorry about that. We've also offered information about how young people can get involved in pollinator pathway projects. We've offered opportunities for the 4-H to bring their young people to do plantings at the Woodstock Farm Festival's site. So they have cleared some space there, and they have done some fall planting, I believe. It's just seeding now. And they intend to continue that project. So we're engaging youth, which is really wonderful. We've also presented on our project at the Youth Environmental Sustainability Summit that happens yearly or close to yearly at the Ashokan Center. And so what we're really asking you as a municipality to commit to is to what we ask most private property owners, with a little bit of an addition, to commit to join the pathway. To go pesticide free. We're asking you to mow less frequently, including leaving some areas for wildflowers to grow. We're asking you to add or encourage native plants in your landscaping. We're asking you to remove invasive plant species that outcompete the beneficial native plants. We're asking you to leave some leaves in the fall for overwintering insects. We're asking you to leave some bare ground and dead wood for nesting native bees. We're also asking you as a municipality to adopt the strategies of integrated pest management into your municipal operations. And we really wanted to take this opportunity to commend you, Town of Woodstock, for your unofficial policies to not use chemical pesticides in your landscaping practices. And we're really hoping that you are, really committed to that and would like to now make that an officially on your books, that you will, adopt these type of landscaping practices. We're hopeful. Along with asking you to do stuff, you will actually get some benefits in return. These are the wonderful benefits that Woodstock can gain from joining the pathway and adopting these practices. The first is improved pollinator health. The next is increase in pollinator populations, increased biodiversity, improved soil health, improved health of our ecosystem, improved health of Woodstock residents, a cost savings to the town. And when I say cost savings, I'm talking about reduction in mowing, a reduction in fuel costs, a reduction in man hours, which can all be allocated to other things that are much needed within the town's operation. And we're talking about community support and partnership. The community is very much behind this movement, and it's not just the Woodstock community, it's the surrounding communities as well. We have heard over and over and over again that people are really trying to get their own pathways started in surrounding communities. We also offer the support and the guidance from our established group of experts. It could be increased tourism for the town of Woodstock. A lot of people, once again, this isn't just an important movement around here. This is actually a movement that's happening nationwide, in fact, worldwide. And so people are really, looking for places to visit that hold these values. And then, you would once again continue to maintain that level of regional leadership in protecting our natural resources. And I think that that's something that Woodstock has been really interested in doing in the past. And I hope that you will like to continue to do that in the future. I think that's all for me. I really appreciate you considering this pollinator resolution. And if you need any more information or resources, we have an enormous amount of resources at our website that is listed right here. If anyone has any questions for anybody on our Pollinator Pathway Steering Committee, there's an email right there that you can reach us at. And I thank you again for your time and consideration.
Thank you, guys. I thought that was great.
Yeah, it was really good.
It was really good. And so I guess what we'll do, if everyone feels good about it, I would like to go ahead and send the resolution to the town board members in the next day or two, ahead of time.
Alex, before you do that, I want to add some term definitions at the very bottom.
Okay, great.
Just a couple more. And I'll just send that to you.
And so when we go on the 10th, Ellie and Georgia, I'll come and introduce you guys just a little bit, and I'll hand out the resolutions, and I'll remind them that we've already sent them and that we're hoping they'll pass it. And then will you, Ellie, will you be around? I'm assuming there may be some questions. So do you feel comfortable afterwards being able to answer some questions too, if there's some kind of logistical stuff?
Absolutely.
Okay, so whenever you have the finished product, because did anyone have any notes they wanted to see changed in there, Julia?
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions about the resolution itself. On the last page, it says resolve that this resolution shall take effect immediately and be it further. Is that something that you would think the town would fill out? It's kind of left blank. Do you know what I mean? On that last page?
I would imagine that it would be however they file their resolutions. I know for the Land Conservancy Board, we have a very specific process by which we file our resolutions. So I'm not sure how that would happen. And we can totally take that out if especially if Laura, with her knowledge of how the town board works, if she, has any recommendations on how we should format that last little bit, I can revise it or leave it out completely so that the town can revise it the way that they see fit.
Laura, you have your hand up, and Ellie has maybe a question you can answer. So do you want to do both?
Well, I know you normally take me last since I'm a guest, not a member, so I'm happy to go last if you want me to go last.
All right, Chris, you wanna?
Sure. I just have a question. It's actually more to a question to Laura. Do we know how much time the board has indicated they were willing to share on this particular topic? Is that a concern?
Well, I think they normally share about 15 minutes and then you might have 5 minutes for questions. So I think if your presentation is 15 minutes, if it goes longer than that, it could be a problem, but I thought the presentation had a lot of great stuff in it.
Yeah, I agree. I just wouldn't want the board to cut it short for some reason. I kind of looked at the time or the clock while they were presenting, and I thought it was a good presentation. I just felt that if by chance someone gets frustrated with the timing and shortens it, it might be a concern. So it might be something you want to look at. You're right about 20 minutes on from George's introduction to Ellie's follow-up, and I think it's good. The other thing is, I don't know if you have a close script that you're following, but you are going to be presenting to the board, and it might be nice to use language that refers more to their responsibilities as opposed to individual homeowners or individual participants. Some of the language sort of focused on that, like, oh, you can be a great, I'm not saying you can be a great, where you had things that sort of implied you could be a great homeowner or something like that. Now, if it's more general, we, the community, the town of Woodstock can benefit, I think that would be the right approach. The other thing is in your first sentence where you said, we're here for the adoption of, and I think you should ask in a polite way, we're here to look forward to your adoption of this particular resolution that's been submitted as a general introduction.
We said the support, we're here to support. I think that's what the word I used.
Yeah, just
Support the resolution.
You were very specific, and I kind of just noted it. Just look at it again, looking for their support. I'm not sure if it was something I misunderstood, but it would be a good way to approach it, I think.
So you say
Maybe. Oh, go ahead, Georgia.
yeah. So you're suggesting saying we're looking for your support.
The board support or the town support of your agenda, as it were. Again, I know that there's been pushback in the past, and Laura can maybe speak to this, about obligating people to do certain kinds of things. And I think you might want to be able to stress ultimately that this is a voluntary adoption of these kinds of things where everybody gets to participate, not because they're obligated because of something that's legally adopted, but because they're obligated as part of the environment that we live in, that we share with all these other elements. And I think that's good to stress that as well. I thought there were a few technical points that were maybe overly detailed just for the town's benefit, but it wasn't negative in terms of your overall presentation. Thanks, guys.
Well,
Thank you.
Ellie, maybe if you and Georgia want to come up with a little bit of a more specific script, and then just stick to that, it might just shave off those like 5 minutes of kind of like veering off. I've never seen the town board stop a presentation, and I've seen some rambling ones for sure. But I think you just want to make sure that everyone's paying attention the whole time, because that's probably more likely to happen than someone cutting you off, is that their mind might veer if it starts going sideways. Laura, do you want to go ahead and answer those?
Sure.
You have a couple questions now, yeah, and then you can.
I have a couple things. Okay, so first off, I thought it was an excellent presentation. I thought it was very well organized. Where I might shave off some, when you talked about what is a pollinator, you did ramble a bit on that, because what was on the page was great, and then you started talking about you were deep diving into one of the pollinators as opposed to, I think the page was really good on its own, and when you went through it, that was good. I thought that was kind of an area where it was rambling. So you might just want to look through the whole presentation and say,
Okay.
where did you ramble a little bit? That was the page that came to mind that I thought you started to ramble a little bit, but I don't know if I'd change anything on the pages for, because I thought the presentation was great. The questions that I had a kind of a by the way question. As you are the Woodstock pollinator pathway, does that limit you? Because I think your value is so great. What if somebody in Saugerties wants to join, or somebody in, I don't know if the name Woodstock is limiting because I think, again, your value is so great.
We do have people who are outside of this area who have joined. But if they don't have a pollinator pathway on their own, in fact, we even had somebody from Brooklyn, I think, who joined.
Oh, cool.
So they can, and but then they don't get, it's not on our map, and
Oh, right.
because it's out of the sun. And we're hoping, of course, that if someone like from Saugerties joins, that they'll get a pollinator pathway. Well, they're working on one down there, so that's what's happening. Yeah, and we've started telling people, well, you're from this area, and we think they're working on one there, and we try to connect them to the people who are working on it.
So it does kind of work best by town. So, okay. So my next question is on the interconnection page. I did have a little points of confusion on that page. When you showed the interconnection, it had kind of two graphics on it, and one had a lot of one-way arrows. And I would have thought that some of the arrows would have looped back around, because I kind of would have thought that some things, I don't know if you want to re-show that interconnection page, but I wasn't really quite sure the graphic on the right didn't make as much sense to me. I didn't think you really talked to it. So anyway, so that page had a little point of confusion for me, because I would have thought on the left-hand graphic would have had some arrows looping around, because I think a lot of things are kind of a closed loop process, and it kind of looked like everything just went one way. I would have thought more of a closed loop process. And I
we could look for different graphics on that, because they're
oh, so you didn't make that graphic is what you're saying?
No,
you kind of found that you didn't
found it. Yeah.
Okay, well, you might be able to add, if you're knowledgeable in PowerPoint, you might be able to add in the other way arrow. You might be able to do some two-way arrows just by putting an arrow on the. But anyway, so if that's not a major thing. So if it takes too much time, stick with what you got, because I thought it was good. I was confused by the right-hand thing. There were a lot of arrows, and that didn't make as much sense to me. But the one on the left did make sense, except for the fact that it wasn't interconnected. But if it's too much trouble to make that right, go with it. The our accomplishments chart, I know you listed, you had a bunch of stuff listed, but then when you talked about a lot of other stuff. Like you said, well, we're tied in with the WEC, we're tied in with the Catskill Center, we're tied in with so it was just interesting that on the our accomplishments page, you listed like 3 things you're tied in with, like the library, but you had a whole long list of stuff that you also talked about. And I was a little confused why it wasn't on the page, because, why put some on the page and not the others? Or I don't know, it did seem odd to me that you talked, you had stuff on the page, but then you talked more about the stuff that wasn't on the page where you are tied in. And you used the word partnered with. We're partnered with the WEC, we're partnered with Catskill Center, we're partnered with, and it was odd that it wasn't on the page when, library and other things were. That was a point of confusion for me. And the last thing, which ties in more with what the discussion here is on the page of what does the pollinator pathway ask? I might have thought that the very first bullet might have been join the pathway, because it seems like that's what your ask is, join the pathway. And yet the words join the pathway weren't on that page. And my question then that may tie into what Chris was talking about was joining the pathway. When somebody joins, I know you want the town to pass a resolution, but my question is, like, if I want to join the pathway, am I filling out an application? Like, joining the pathway has a process. The town passes resolutions because we're a board, but if we weren't a town, would we be filling out an application? Or what is the joining the pathway? What is the normal process to join the pathway?
Laura, were you able to read the resolution at all?
I did not read sorry, I did not read the resolution.
Because it's pretty specific, and this is why we'll send it ahead of time, but it's pretty specific in what things the town would be committing to.
Well, I saw that page
in the resolution. So like all of the be it resolved are things that the town would be committing to doing as part of joining the pollinator pathway.
But that actually doesn't answer my question. My question is, if a community, municipality, group, individual wanted to join the pollinator pathway, do they normally submit an application? Like, if I wanted to join the pathway, how would you know? You would have to accept me as joining, right? Wouldn't you accept me? You wouldn't just I wouldn't just say, oh, now I'm part of the pathway. I would have had to connect with your group and you would have to have me on a list.
Allie comes
Ye-
to your house and she surveys your property. And if it doesn't
No.
comply, we burn your house down. Actually, that's what happened.
You brought my house down. It'll be better for the animals if my house weren't there.
No, it's like an honor system. And so that's why in the resolution, there's a difference that's noted between joining the pathway and then having each piece of land on the map, because what would happen is the town can say, yes, we want to do this. We're going to commit to doing these things. And then as each piece of land comes into compliance, that can become a point on the map.
Exactly.
So
And
it's
and we
saying that
follow-
it has been
yeah.
accomplished.
And we follow the same process as the Pollinator Pathways of the Northeast umbrella organization that we're part of. We're a chapter of their organization. And so they basically ask folks, individuals, as well as organizations and organizations and individuals to take a pledge. The reason why we're asking the town to pass a resolution is because there's actually like official things that the town needs to codify to be
Right.
able to say, no, we're never going to use chemical pesticides again, or we're going to put X amount of percentage of native plants and new plantings, when they come up. Those things that, there has to be an official position from a municipality standpoint to be able to, do those things and commit to those things. For an individual, you can just say, I'm committed to these things and you will take your word for it. And so basically an individual who wants to sign up for the pathway goes to our website. There's a giant button on the top that says join, and you click and you fill out that form. And the form is literally your name, your physical property address, so we can add it to the map, and your email address. And that's it. We're asking you by adding that information to that form and submitting it, you're taking the pledge that you are going to adopt those kind of landscaping practices at your home, in your home.
Okay, so if an individual wanted to join the pathway, they would go to the website, click join, fill out a form, and they are part of the pathway. They may not be mapped yet. If they want to be on the map, that's like another process. So the act of joining.
No, that's the process to get them added to the map. Once we get a collection of people who want to join the pathway, we update the map. The map has not been updated in a little while, and that has to do with technical issues, not because people don't want to join.
Okay, so joining, part of the process of joining puts people on the map because they give you the information, they give you enough information, you can put them on the map. Okay, so for an individual to join, they follow the form, get on the map. For the town to join, it'll be a resolution. They don't have to go fill out the form. It'll be a resolution says we're joining. And then for the town to be on the map, there'll be communication with you in the town about this property, that property, the other property, or maybe the whole town. Maybe every town property, if the town pledges to address things the right way with all town properties, would all town properties go on the map right away?
If they could say that they're, haven't used chemical pesticides in a period of time and they have native plants growing and they intend to, encourage those plants to keep growing, then yes, that property could be part of the pathway.
So, and I don't.
Laura, part of the reason for asking this, I think, is because what we've seen in Woodstock is that there's a lot of really good intentions with the town in terms of their landscaping practices, but they're not codified into the law. So it's kind of like an honor system that we're, like Bill will say, oh, Jeremy Wilbur never let them buy Roundup, and we've just always done it that way. And that's great. And I believe, I don't fully believe it because we know that's not true, but in 5 years from now, in 10 years from now, who knows what the landscape here will look like. We want to make sure that whatever we're informally committing to and practicing is going to be something that we'll be doing 20 years down the line, and that it's like in the law. And if someone doesn't do it correctly, we can refer back and say, it is in the law that we do this. Here's what it is. It's not just like he usually buys this. We like to do it
Yeah.
this way. So
Right.
this was the easiest way of addressing all of those things in one package.
Mhm.
That
But-
is not a ton of a commitment on behalf of the town, because there's no repercussions. There's no,
So,
No.
so technically speaking, as the town passes a resolution, that's different from passing a law. So, and it may be that we want to go the extra step. In my view, passing a law is an extra step, because if something is a law, you go to the laws, there's a website you go to, and there's the laws. So passing a resolution does not equal passing a law. It's good, but maybe we want to do some follow-on work to make a law and put it in there. That's kind of what I'm saying. The resolution is a good first step. Although if we want to make it a law, that actually wouldn't be a bad idea. That idea has some merit, I think. Anyway, but back to this
well,
then.
can't we though refer back? Like, let's say you're like, oh, I want to make this a law. You can then refer back and say, we passed this resolution saying we're going to do this. So now we're going to go do it as a law. I mean, that's how we've done, what have we done in the past? You know, we'll say like, we want to do this because you as the town board passed a resolution saying, go ahead and do this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a resolution, yeah, I mean, a resolution is fine. A law kind of, somehow a law seems more sturdy, if you know what I mean, because it's in the laws. But anyway, Arlene's got her hand up.
I'm just saying that let's start with a resolution.
And I'm sorry, I have to find my TV just popped on by itself. I'm trying to find my controls so I can turn it off. So sorry. I mean, I need to mute for a minute while, I found it. Never mind. There we go. All right.
Start with a resolution. Start with a resolution, see how far the town gets, how quickly with their properties. And if it becomes a great success this year, then maybe you want to move to a law, but that's for another discussion.
Well, and maybe Alex wants to put it on her agenda for 6 months from now, for instance, or
A year from now.
Yeah, or a year from now. So maybe that's something that.
Laura, this is like when you guys wrote the comprehensive plan, none of those are laws, but we refer back to them constantly when we think
Absolutely.
of what laws we want to pass.
Absolutely. Yes, we do. Yeah, yes, we do. So yes, we do, but it was concerted effort. And frankly, I was liaison to the comprehensive plan, and I was frankly, I sat in with Bill McKenna and I said, here's the comprehensive plan. Here's the list of actions. Here's how we ought to parcel them out. And Bill and I had together agreed on which committees would get it. And we created committees for it. So that it was concerted effort to push. And I was part of that effort. That's kind of my point. So things a lot of times don't happen by themselves. It didn't just magically happen. It was, I did push it. And it's not like I had to push Bill. I mean, he was very receptive, but I did push it. We worked together, and then all these committees got formed. So the point being, it doesn't happen by itself. But anyway, so back to your charts. So my thought with the charts is when you have the page, what does the pollinator pathway ask? You might have put in the title, what does the pollinator pathway ask of Woodstock? Because specifically you're asking Woodstock. So you might have added the words of Woodstock to the title of that chart. The first thing might be join the pathway. But I think that somewhere on the page, it also say what you just said, and I think maybe it did, but I'm not looking at the page right now, is it said, we want to get mapped. You want to have a partnership where you're looking at each property with a goal that each property become mapped as an active member of the pathway. So in the case of a private owner, by comparison to the town, a private owner normally has one property. The town has a lot of properties. So it might be good to clarify to the town that you are asking that there be a process, because, you know, look at each property the town owns with a goal of getting each property on the map and being compliant with that list. And I'm trying to think of who, I mean, I'm the liaison to the WEC. I'm happy to be involved to help make that happen. It's always good. People get tired of hearing me say I'm a professional project manager, but I am. Whenever I figure out where we're going, I try to figure out now, how are we going to get there? And what I'm trying to figure out with this right now is I'm happy to be a liaison. You would be looking at each property. You would be asking the town to say what's compliant. And the missing link in my mind that I'm trying to figure out here, as I'm talking this through, is how do we as a town make sure? I don't know if I work with maintenance, maybe I work with maintenance and get them to talk about each property. But I think the end goal is to have every town property be compliant. And I think it's good to state that, because the town has a lot of properties, a number of properties, and getting each one compliant. I think it's good to state that that's kind of an end goal. Join the pathway, but get each property compliant, and that would put each property on the map. And it may be a follow-on piece of work to actually make that happen. So that's kind of my thought process of tying up all the loose ends. I'm all for it. I think this is excellent. I think it's tremendous. And I wonder whether the green, which the town doesn't own the green, right? The church owns the green, but is the green on the pollinator pathway? I thought that they had some pollinators.
They have, we've had discussions about that, and they do have some pollinator plants. But there are problems there. The people who have been maintaining that, the women who have been working on that, are mostly retiring. There's one who's remaining.
Yeah.
And there are ongoing problems with water there, because the watering system they had has stopped working.
Oh.
And the town hasn't said they would, get it up and running again. So we've sort of haven't really pushed on that, because, we were talking about getting more involved in that, but we see it as perhaps problematic because of the water situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't
So-
mean to tangent. So I've kind of
Laura, can I ask you something?
Yes.
So I think what you're asking for is some change in the wording of the resolution, so that it shows the process that you're talking about.
So Laura has not read the resolution.
Yeah, I
so
should, yeah.
maybe Laura should take
Yeah.
some time to read the resolution, and then if she has feedback, she's welcome to share it. But I don't think we need to change anything or do anything as of yet,
The resolution is
because
really good.
I'm sorry, what
we're
are they?
just-
I said the
Yeah, the
resolution is really
resolution is
good,
great.
very clear, has a nice flow to it, and explains incredibly well what they want of the town of Woodstock. So read it. I
And
think
it
that's
would be
helpful.
nice. I'm gonna send it as soon as I get the finished copy from Ellie. It's been disappointing in the past, and I'll just say it to you, even though I'm not blaming you, but you are representing the faults of the entire town board in this moment. That we have often gone to town board meetings where no one has, or not everyone has read the resolution that we are there to talk about. And that is very frustrating, because then we get into situations like this where people are asking questions, but they would have known the answer. So whatever you can do to gently nudge your colleagues to please take a look at this before it's the question portion of the evening would be much appreciated by those who put a lot of effort and time into writing it.
And I don't mean to laugh, but they don't read my stuff either.
I'm sure.
I'm just saying.
So, all right.
I will do my best. Now, who will how
so
will I reach Ellie or Georgia? If I have any comments on the resolution, will I just give them to you, Alex, and you'll get it to Ellie and Georgia?
Sure. Yeah. Or I
Okay.
can put you guys all on an email is fine.
Okay. All right. Okay.
That resolution,
and I
by
would
the way,
imagine anyway, Georgia and Ellie, just so you guys know, I don't know how many times you've done this, but it seems that it's unusual that the vote would be taken on the same day. So if there are questions, it's possible that they might come after the presentation anyway, and there might be time to change something at that point too. So don't be surprised, I would say, if that is the case. And hopefully we're still on the agenda for the 10th, and I'm gonna confirm it when we send the resolution around. So
okay. Will they have enough time to read the resolution between now and then? Or is it typical this short?
It's only a page and 2.5 pages.
Yeah.
I certainly hope that they are able to, but I will not take anything for granted, because I don't even know if they all read the budget at this point. But
Could we try to
you
get
never, I don't know. Hope so.
Oh, we have a budget. We have a budget. We all looked at the budget.
Let's go there. Can we get that to them before the weekend?
I'm
So
just gonna, yeah, when Ellie sends me the added glossary, I'll just send it off. So hopefully it'll be by Friday.
great.
Just
I'll
one
have it
question.
to you, Alex, by my midday tomorrow at the latest.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hey, Julia.
Just one final thing. The formatting seemed a little wonky. There were big spaces and I don't know, it was just strange. Did
Yeah.
anyone else encounter that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so
Yes,
should we clean that up maybe?
I did too, Julia.
Okay,
Do you want to
It's my
just send it to
fault.
me, Ellie, as a
I just followed the format for the Ulster County resolution. Use the same format, and so I
with
didn't.
all those spaces?
And I'm not good with spaces. I'm not good at that stuff.
We
so,
can help
yeah.
you if you want.
okay.
you know? Okay,
Okay, or Ellie, you're good at that, aren't you?
Are we talking about the resolution or the presentation?
resolution,
Resolution.
resolution.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I can help with any kind of formatting issues that, Georgia, if you want to readdress how the format is.
Okay.
We just followed the same format that the county used for their resolutions. So that's why
if
it's in
you
that
want
format.
to send it to me in a Word document and then I can fix it up like more typical to how we usually send them, and then I'll just save it as a PDF and send it like that. It's
There
fine.
you go.
That makes sense.
Okay, sounds good.
Not a problem. All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your comments. Very
And
much
it's excellent,
appreciated.
it's an excellent,
Guys.
excellent initiative.
It is.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
We think so. Yeah.
Okay. So
Have a nice day,
Okay.
everybody.
good night, guys.
Bye.
Good night.
Sam Acres, there isn't a ton. I mean, I sent the email with our comments. The meeting is tomorrow. What I didn't realize until this evening when I got the email did you guys all see the forwarded email from Melissa?
Yeah,
That I guess the meeting tomorrow is not the same meeting as the wetlands permit meeting.
yeah.
So those are going to be two separate things, but I'm going to go tomorrow, I'm guessing on Zoom. And see what goes on. This is just with the lawyer. So I'm a little unclear actually, because they made it sound like next was the public hearing, but then this is going to be a different thing for the wetlands permit.
And then
Um,
did they also, in that email from Melissa, I got the impression it was just going to be the lawyers there representing her.
It's also
In-
the
I
lawyer
don't-
for the planning board.
In the past, they've all shown up. I mean, I'm assuming that the developers will be there and the lawyers. And I think the point was for the lawyers to answer any of the questions that the planning board
Oh,
had.
I
And of
say,
course,
okay.
we sent a bunch, and she did write back to me and said she forwarded them along to their lawyers to see if they had answers to, what our concerns had been.
I say, okay.
I
Thanks.
don't know if we'll hear back ahead of time or tomorrow, or if it'll be addressed at all. And then it sounds like the wetlands permit will be a separate thing.
So should we let Melissa know if we want to go to the meeting, Zoom wise or whatever?
She's gonna send me the link tomorrow, and then I'll just send it to everyone. And if you want to come, I mean, we're being recorded, so I'm going to be cautious with my words, but I'm curious to see how it plays out, because it did sound like it was just ready to move on, but then I've heard a lot of concerns coming from a number of different parties. So I don't know what will be the case, what will happen.
Curious.
And then, so if anyone wants to come tomorrow night, that's the plan. And I think they do it at 6:30. Not at
6,
7,
I think 6,
right?
6 o'clock,
Is it 6 now?
6, I think, yeah.
Okay, they do it at 6, guys, not at 7.
Mm.
All right, anything else about that? No. Composting, Chris, I didn't really get a chance to open that document yet. I've been with
Well,
the
good
kids
for
all
you,
day.
Chris. Yay, it looked great. I thought it was great.
Really good.
Yeah,
It was a good start. Good
yeah,
start.
let me just give everybody a quick summary of what's involved in that. What I did was I acquired that domain. It's registered to me, but we can transfer it to anybody who wants to be the steward of that particular endeavor. I didn't get too detailed in terms of text and narrative. It is actually a live site. So if you type in
Mhm.
Woodstock, New York composting, it will pop up on your URL. It's the same thing as the link that I sent you. So what we can do now is, as we move forward with that project, be it with an official or a detailed composting program, or just utilizing that site as an information portal for things that relate to composting, it's available. I can quickly edit or add things. We can talk about design and concept when we have more things to do, or as an independent effort, one-on-one or whatever is appropriate. But it is fairly flexible. I didn't spend an extended period of time on the design aspect of it, but we can always streamline it, and we could add features if we're doing programs. We have actual photographs of events or efforts that are appropriate. We can include those in the documentation there, and or elaborate on what we want to say in terms of specific information. It has a lot of bells and whistles for things like submitting requests and getting newsletters and things like that. They're in there, they're functional, but they're not fully set up in the sense that if you put your name in there, we'll have to find out where it ends up. Hopefully it'll come to me, but we'll see. So we can play around with it and come up with concepts or details that we think will make sense, but the basic structure's there. We have access to it. It didn't cost much. I've contributed the cost of it so far to the effort. And if it gets too much more involved, which I don't think it will, then we can consider what the cost will be.
Julia?
Yeah, so I thought it was great. Question is it template based so that any one of us could get in and add words and text, or how will that work, do you think?
You need to log on as me. And if you want to go
Okay.
in and do text, or you could just ship me pieces of text and I can kind of drop it in. It's fairly simple. I think anybody that's comfortable with slightly more complicated desktop stuff, it's pretty comfortable. It's no more complicated than something like a PDF editor or a PowerPoint or something like that. It's
So
got
you
the
don't
same
have to particularly use code, or do you, or
No,
not?
it's basically, you point at something, you say, I like that picture, I don't like the picture, you point on it. In the interface, you click on the text and then add what you want to add. So it's just basically cut and paste. And it have some very simple little things. You want to make it bigger, you want to make it smaller. There are more elaborate aspects to it, but the general formatting is quite simple. That's one of the reasons I went with that.
Are you willing to share your logins so that we can
Yeah,
take?
reach out to me and do that. I don't
Okay.
remember what it is right now, but yeah, just send me a note if you think you want to work on it a little bit, that's fine.
Okay.
I don't feel particularly proprietary on it. I think it should just be there, and if I can help with it. I've done stuff with that particular interface before, so that's why it's fairly straightforward. And again, the reason to use that is because it is something that anybody can pretty much update.
Chris, is it difficult to change the login information if we need to?
And what's that? I could transfer the responsibility to the website to somebody else.
Like if we wanted to set it up so it goes like the login email is like the WEC at Woodstock, whatever email, and then we just have a password that's a more general one. Is that a pretty easy?
Somebody had to pay for it, so the fact that I paid for it sort of started it that way. Let me see what I need to do to transfer it if you want to.
Shouldn't it, sorry, this is Erin. Shouldn't ultimately it be under the guise of the town?
I think
that
once
what we
we
wa-
set it up, then we can transfer it, but the whole point was we didn't want to use the town's web interface. Initially, that was the discussion, because we felt that was going to be too cumbersome. And it gave us a certain level of
Independence and flexibility.
independence and flexibility. Thank you, Julia. And then the point being, ultimately, once it's set up and it works and it's all done, we can put a link that goes from the town site to this particular site if the town is comfortable with that process. And that would be my suggestion in the future as we move forward.
And just so you guys know, I sent a follow-up email yesterday just to
Mhm.
ask about how the grant is going. So I haven't heard back from them yet. I mean, I sent it to like 3 random email addresses that
Yeah.
came to the email to us that said, thank you for so we'll see. It should be any day now, I hope.
Right, and let me just clarify, we can transfer that site to any place we want to in any kind of format. It's just a matter of going through the process. But rather than just giving it to the town right now, it doesn't make sense. I think the idea is to build it, and make it work, and then figure out how you want to work it. Right now, it's just, I have it. If Julia wants to work on it, then Julia can have the log on as well, if somebody else wants to do it. Once we know that it works and it meets our general expectations, then we can figure out where to push it in the future.
Great.
Thank you for doing all that work, Chris.
Yeah,
I mean,
really, thank you.
No problem.
like I said, I didn't get a chance to really dive into it, but I really appreciate that you did it. I'm sure it's very cool. I'm gonna look at it later.
For right now, it's just a good structure that we can start to build on.
Mhm.
Okay, any other composting stuff before we? Okay, so the only other thing I have, Julia, thank you also to you for that very thorough 2022 wrap up that made us look so good.
Good.
I didn't even remember all of those things.
Took
We
our work
didn't
away from
really
us.
get into goals for this year, so I didn't know if anyone had anything they really want to do that we can put down onto a list and try to accomplish. Yeah, Bob.
We still have an open seat, and I'm wondering if we should try to actively recruit for that.
What
Aren't
about
you
Beth?
always actively? I feel like I'm always actively recruiting.
Bob, that's
Found
Bob, you
anyone.
mentioned at one of the meetings that you had several people that you thought might be interested and qualified. Has that worked out, or has that not gone anywhere?
It hasn't gone anywhere. I've mentioned it to them, but they were like, yeah, that sounds cool, but I'm not going to beg them.
And that's the
Arlene, is
last thing I
Beth
heard.
interested?
She's about to switch positions. So I actually talked to her about it the day before yesterday, and she was afraid that this job. I got to be honest with you, she's a real workaholic. So she said, "Is the WEC going to take up like hours of my week?" I said, "No,"
Well,
and that calmed
sometimes.
her down. So sometimes, but it's not like she thought it would be like evenings, all evenings, like
Mhm.
so. She might be. She's a work in progress, so I'm working on her to see if she would be. I suggested she come to our meeting,
Hmm,
and she'll see.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
she should come anyway one night. I mean, why not just invite her to come anyway? And then
She came to the CEA
I was
presentation.
gonna say she was at the CEA. That was like an unusual.
Right.
She probably saw that and was like, "Oh my God, this is gonna ruin my life."
Exactly. She said, "This is what they do." So,
This was the worst
anyway.
meeting for her to go to.
but yeah,
Erin, do you?
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm just looking to lower my hand. Back to the year-end list. Yeah, kudos to Julia for doing that. Thanks, Julia. It looks great. I just wanted to add 2 things to it. I wanted to add a little bit better detail of the 10 Church Road status, because I think we actually did do a few things. I just can't, don't have them off the top of my head. And also I wanted to add some climate smart things on there. And also with regards to the 2023 list coming up, I don't know if it's not on the agenda for tonight. We're already past 8 o'clock, but I did want to talk about, there's a few climate smart actions that I thought maybe we could look at this year, stemming from that climate stewards certification I got through Cornell Cooperative Extension, through that program that I took. Some of them have to do with like flood mitigation for the town, and there's a lot of grant money available. So I think it would be a, dare I say, easy lift, because we could partner with other organizations and the town could really benefit from it with regards to the town overall benefiting. And that has to do with the climate smart, with climate change. So I did want to kind of talk to you guys about that more at the next meeting, maybe.
Yeah, that sounds great. Do you want to send us I'm assuming there's like a link to that item or something?
Yeah, I can send you the info.
And then we
Yeah.
can take a look at it before, and I'll make sure it's on the agenda for the next meeting.
All right, thanks. And then
Yeah.
also, should I,
Yeah.
sorry?
Just so we're all on the same page, I said, so we know what we're talking about.
As Julie
Yeah,
and list, just send my updates to the attend list.
you broke up there.
You're breaking up, Aaron.
Send them to Bob.
You, my edits for the year-end list
Send it to me.
to you, Bob. Okay, got it. Will do.
Arlene, did you want to make, Laura, I guess, the heat pump program, is that something that we should be focused on this year as a goal? Or,
They're going to be doing the study this year. Yes, hopefully. Laura, we haven't heard anything yet.
I don't think so. I was gonna look while we're talking here.
Did we want to try, so one thing I thought might be interesting to look into, since we've been talking about it a lot and it keeps coming up, and we did the CEA and that's almost like part one. Did we want to look into revisiting, updating the wetlands law?
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Revising.
Yeah, for sure.
Revising the wetlands law.
I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. We wanted to do that, I think, in 20. And Laura, you made an opening for us and we just somehow, we lost it. So I don't know.
So the other, Bill mentioned something about wanting to, I don't know if anybody's been reading this in the papers. He wants to redo the youth center completely now.
Yeah.
And if he does, I think that we should take an active role in the energy portion of that design. And maybe even bring the kids in on it, because it would
And
be
also with that youth center, and I guess maybe this is for Laura or anybody else who knows, with that youth center, the community center.
You're breaking
Or
up,
is it
Aaron.
just
Losing you.
Stick your leg in the air.
Sorry. Sorry, guys. Is this better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that youth center remodel that has been mentioned by Bill, does that include the community center? Does anyone know?
No, the community center just got done.
Yeah, it does not. It does not.
Okay.
Aaron, I believe the community center was the last building that got done.
Mhm.
Then it's the town offices, and next is going to be the youth center.
Okay.
The discussion Bill is having is whether to renovate it or simply tear it down and build a new building.
Correct.
Right. Mhm.
But both of those
Beyond
options,
saving.
could have some really good possibilities of energy savings and education, particularly for the youth that are using that building while it's happening.
And I think we want to make sure that we don't have another playground incident where like we spend a lot of money and we get a playground that no one likes. That's all I'm saying.
Does no one like it? Really?
I think the kids don't love it.
Really?
But the playground? The
I
new
spend a
one?
lot of time at the playground. Yeah.
You're talking about the one at the school?
No, the one that's
No.
by the youth center.
Oh.
Andy
okay.
Lee Memorial Field. I like it. But I don't
Yeah,
spend
I
any
mean-
time there.
Do you like the swings? Do you go on them?
I don't. I like the look of
Really
it.
high. If you're a kid, you can't get onto the swings. And if you're an adult, you're not
Oh.
strong enough to lift them high enough to get onto them.
okay.
It's like the most insane design flaw.
Oh, okay.
All right, so those are, so we're gonna say, Erin, your flood mitigation for climate smart, wetlands, the youth
Composting,
center, composting, goes
Earth
without saying.
Day, of course.
Oh, Earth Day.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
would
you're
also, I would like to make a suggestion on a topic that may be appropriate because it comes up from time to time when we're working on these other efforts. The idea of strengthening the enforcement of a lot of the guidelines, regulations, and codes and things, particularly things like trees getting cut down inappropriately or wetlands being potentially or actually impacted due to certain kinds of things that are either unpermitted or permitted incorrectly. And I think it might be something we want to bring up with the town and the enforcement portion of the town to see who and when people are watching things. Church Road is an example, things like that, just to know that we've done what we can to know that the town is appropriately covered in terms of being able to address things quickly and efficiently without a lot of controversy or confusion. I don't know if that's something we want to go into or if that's something that's beyond what we want to deal with.
I mean, is that in our purview, or I guess doesn't matter?
Not
The
really.
topic comes up, Bob. I mean, you were one person, I think, on the project that's before the planning board talking about enforcement. I know Church
Yeah,
Road
no,
is all about enforcement. You know, there's been, in my experience, as brief as it is, that the topic of enforcement tends to be the sort of the fulcrum that everything bends on. And I'm just wondering if that's something that we as a functioning enterprise have the ability to influence. Not to say that we're going to do the enforcement. I know that has been a topic, you know, Alex was going to go over there, and I think that's the best way to handle anything, to send Alex over, she'll straighten it out. But the idea being, you know, is that something that we want to help the town understand how important that can be when it comes to meeting the goals that we'd all like to see met?
I mean,
Yeah.
I know the planning board goes into this a lot too, because they, you know, like last year or 2 years ago, they did a lot about the scenic overlay, and they've been thinking about what they want to do differently with the scenic overlay. And it always comes down to like, how are we going to enforce this? So I know they have a lot of concern about it as well. I don't know what are, you know, obviously we advise constantly, like, this needs to be enforced, this needs to be enforced. The town doesn't seem to have the capability of doing it, both because the penalties tend to be really weak, and there just isn't the manpower or woman power, as the case may be, to actually do it. And those are two things that we can't do much about, except advise. And I'm happy to always keep advising on those things. If we want to do something like revisit what the wetlands law should look like, certainly one of the things that could be written into it would be stronger penalties for people who don't comply, that actually are disincentives for someone to do things, you know, wrong and then hope for the best. But I think unless the town is interested in hiring new people, I mean, I don't see that changing anytime soon. It doesn't seem like it's a priority for the town at the moment. But we can certainly push for it as much as we can, you know, would be my feeling.
There
I
are
don't know.
some of the complexities apparently. I know that, and this is back from Ellen, who's not here anymore, but some of the complexities of enforcement are having a case that will stand up in court. So, you know, things have to be kind of cut and dried. It's one thing to know something's true. It's another thing to prove it in court. So I think there are a lot of different complexities to what's going on there. We did hire a second but when Ellen left, there was just Butch, but now we hired somebody else, so now there's Butch and
William
somebody else.
Spencer.
Yeah, okay. So we'll, he's been on board for several months now, so we'll have to see how that evolves.
Well, doesn't part
I
of
think part
the
of it is-
issue of it being enforceable in court, doesn't that also have to do with the vagueness of the laws? It hasn't been that been looked, I thought that was being looked at.
The abatement of the law?
No, the
Vagueness.
vagueness,
Oh, I'm sorry, everybody talked at once. Say again?
the vagueness.
Oh, the vagueness. The vagueness. Well, there you go. So, perhaps.
Sorry, I just, I get kind of defensive when I hear someone say, well, prosecuting it in court is a challenge, but it's not so much prosecuting it in court as it is how the laws are written and how the building inspector fills out the paperwork. The court's
well-
pretty cut and dry. It's those two things. When they get in front of the court, if they're not done correctly, the court has no choice. But
No, and that's my point. My point is knowing something's true and doing it correctly so that it can be found that way in court. I'm not blaming the court. I'm saying
yeah,
it's not always easy to get things right.
Mm.
Well, yeah.
yeah. Agree. I see what you're saying now.
My analogy is when I owned that building in Woodstock and I had drug dealers in the building, I go to the police and say, is that person a drug dealer? Yeah. Well, why don't you arrest them? Well, knowing they're a drug dealer and proving it in court are two different things. I mean, there's just an example right there.
Wow.
So, yeah, really, tell me about it. So, anyway, but
Did
right.
they have
So,
good drugs? Do you have their
what's that?
number? No.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said, did they have good drugs and do you have their number?
I don't know if they have good drugs, and I can tell you they don't live in my building anymore. And I did sell the building, so anyway.
I mean, Chris, I think that what we can do on that front would be things like saying we want to rewrite this wetlands law. We want it to be more precise. We want to include stricter penalties. We want to include a method of enforcement that can be followed. And those are things that we could look at from our end.
Which is
I
kind of what we just did with this
Yeah.
last thing.
Right, and I'm listening to what you're saying, Alex, and also what Laura's saying, and I absolutely agree that there's a lot of frustration on everybody's part. How do we enforce things if we don't have the resources, we don't have the right laws, we don't have the right penalties, we're not able to identify, who the perpetrators are in whatever circumstance that is. But I think if we want to influence the outcome of how the town operates, then we should do everything we can to make sure that it is effective, rather than just passing resolutions, asking people to do things, having a contamination situation. Rather than being frustrated by it, why not be proactive and see if there is something that can be done that will allow things to be more resolution.
Well, like a lot of the laws, for example, like maybe is it the tree cutting law? They'll say, don't cut them any more than is necessary. So, and that'll be what the wording of the law says. And then you're like, necessary according to who? Necessary says what? So how do you enforce a law that is so obtuse that, anyone in subjective, that anyone could interpret it? Like, is it necessary to have a pool at your house? Is it necessary for how do you know? So, and I think this goes back to what Erin said, the laws themselves that we have here, and we're seeing it with this Terramore thing. What is our wetland law? Does it mean this? Does it mean this? They're not specific enough to even, and I don't know if that was done purposefully. You have to have a town that wants to enforce things. It doesn't seem like that's a priority all of the time here, so changing some of the wording of these laws would be huge, I think.
Yeah, I got my hand up. I don't know whether you saw it.
Yeah.
As chair of the zoning revision committee, I would be very happy if the WEC did want to have a 2023 item that said, if there are environmental areas in the law that are vague, I certainly, as chair of the zoning revision committee, would embrace the WEC pointing out some things. I mean, if you wanted to be a partner to say, hey, here's some vagueness, we can fix this environmentally, we can fix that environmentally.
But wasn't Connor working on that for a while? What happened with that?
Connor and Ed Sanders have worked on a scenic overlay law, and we've been reviewing it at the zoning revision committee. So, but it's only like a three or 4 page law. It's not a really big deal. There may be environmental things that are vague over and above that, or besides that. I mean, there's a tree, besides the scenic overlay law, there is a tree law. So there's 2 different laws, and we haven't been asked to look at the tree law, but we got 2 big things off our plate this year, as I think you know. I'm delighted the telecommunications law got passed. That was a heavy workload. I'm delighted that the wellhead protection got passed. That was a heavy workload. I'm still working on the housing, which is a heavy workload, but at some point that'll get maybe smoother. I don't know. But I mean, we as the zoning revision committee are saying, now what are we going to look at next? We're doing scenic overlay. Now we're focused on that, but we are looking at things we can do next. So so anyway, scenic overlay we're working on that with Connor. He and Ed wrote a draft, and we're combing through it as a zoning revision committee.
Can you
So,
remind us on the zoning revision committee? Sorry, Erin.
I'm sorry,
That's
what did
okay.
you ask again, Alex?
Do you mind reminding us who is on the zoning revision committee?
Well, besides me, there's Ed Sanders, Dave Menzies, Jeff Collins, Mike Castiglione, Jude Salato, Connor Wank. 7
So
members.
are all of does it seem like are there people from all the different boards? Not really, right?
Well, there's more boards than 7. So by definition,
Like, is
no.
there someone from the tree committee? I mean, I guess I'm curious, like when something like a scenic overlay law or a tree law or a wetlands law, like we don't ever know what is really happening there.
At the zoning revision committee.
Yeah, and obviously not everything has to do with the WEC, but you know, when something that does pertain to certain things comes up, are those people being involved?
Well, right now we're doing scenic overlay, and that was because Connor from the planning board had issues with it, and Connor, that was a hot button of Connor's. So we're addressing scenic overlay, and it was on. Oh, by the way, it was part of the comp plan. When we got formed, it was because the comp plan had 12 items plus a 13th, which is overall look at zoning law, you know, wherever you want to. But there are 12 specific items, and one of the specific items was scenic overlay. So we're doing scenic overlay because it did come out of the comp plan, and Connor, on his time at the planning board, it's a hot button of his.
All right, Erin, one more thing and then we'll go.
So I just wanted to say, back to what Laura was saying about someone from the WEC, you know, kind of sitting in or joining or contributing to the zoning revisions committee, the ZRC. I think that's a great idea. I like the idea. I want to say thanks for the invite, Laura. I think maybe it should be on our year, this year. And actually, I think it's a good idea maybe to put it on there every year. Doesn't mean that somebody from the WEC has to attend every single meeting, but we should definitely partner and kind of, you know, make ourselves available and maybe have a WEC liaison, you know, to kind of keep tabs on any upcoming changes that might impact the environment. I think that's a great idea.
Or you may initiate some. I mean, that's kind of my point too, though. You're saying, well, if there are areas in the environment that you think aren't being addressed,
Yeah.
because the law is vague. If the root cause of the problem is the law is vague, and you're aware of those things, come to the ZRC and say, hey, we're looking at this chapter, this verse, this can be less mushy. I would embrace that. I think working together, if you see problems, bring them to the ZRC and we'll look to fix them. So
I think that's a great idea.
Because we do have time. Again, we had big things that just left our plate. We got room. So that's good. Now I know you want to go because there's a minute left here or wherever much. I noticed Terramore was not on your agenda. They are having a public hearing this month. I went to the Saugerties Planning Board meeting in December. The Saugerties Planning Board meeting this month is going to be a public hearing. I do plan to speak. Anyway, I won't talk more about it unless you wanted me to. I know your meeting has run long.
We didn't have any new answers about anything, so I didn't put it on the agenda for tonight.
But to make a long story short, they had about 8 speakers. Terramore had a presentation at the December Saugerties Planning Board meeting. And in my opinion, they were very slick and had an answer for everything. Do I believe every answer? I'm a little skeptical, but yeah. So anyway, it's like a train moving forward. That's my opinion.
I think one thing that would be really nice to know, and I don't know how we're going to find this out. I assume we never will. But what the town truly intends and hopes to do in this case, because there's been a lot of lip service given to oh, we want to make sure we fight this as much as we can, and we want to this, and we want to do this, and we want to do this, and then when it comes down to it, that seems to not be the case at all. And so for us, when we're looking at this, you know, are we wasting our time? Are we yelling into an abyss? Are we like talking to people who have no interest in this whatsoever? Or is what we're doing perhaps going to make a difference? It feels at the moment like no. And if that is the case, it would be great to just know that. I mean, I don't know what and you don't have to answer this right
Well,
now. I know.
I think I can give you a
maybe
short,
on
I'll try
the
to keep it short.
Like,
I would like
know-
to answer that if I may.
I can imagine what some of the concerns the town might have could be that are very valid in terms of not getting involved. But we're definitely hearing both sides coming from the same people, and it is particularly confusing when you are trying to take a straight road somewhere and it's like going like this. So to understand what the intentions of the town are would be very valuable, and I mean it really honestly, not like the intentions of we want to say we really don't like this, but at the end of the day we don't want to get involved because it could be an expensive legal headache, or it could be a this, or it could be a this. It would just be nice to understand those things. We don't have to say it while we're being recorded. We can talk about it in person sometime.
Well, I'd like to try to give, I'm gonna try to keep things quick, because I know we've run long. So the town lawyer, well, and I've spoken to Jen Metzger, by the way. So I as a person am an involved person. I am involved. I'm going to meetings. I'm going to Citizens Against Terror meetings. I'm going to Saugerties Planning Board meetings. Bill McKenna has moved the December town board meeting so I could go to the Saugerties Planning Board meeting because it's the same time. He's going to move the January meeting that's at the same time so I can go. So I, as a person, am an involved person. The issue with the town is an interested party. The issue with the town being an involved party, you have to qualify. You can't just vote and say, oh, we want to be involved. You have to qualify. The town lawyer has not said that we qualify. The town lawyer has indicated that we don't qualify. I spoke with Jen Metzger. She said New York State is a home rule state. Saugerties, it's stuff within their borders. They can make their decisions. I plan to go make a lot of noise at the public hearing for two reasons. One, we are a neighbor and they will impact us. Their experts said, oh, we won't impact you. There won't be a traffic impact. Here's our expert said we don't. Here's our smoke expert. No, we're environmental. Here's our habitat expert. No, there's no endangered species. Here's, they had answers for everything. And I personally think some of the answers were BS. So I plan to stand up and say so. The other thing that I plan to do is, so I as a person am involved, but the town, our lawyer has indicated that we do not qualify to be an involved party. Interested party, yes, we can go to the meetings, we can speak, we're an interested party. I, as a person, am an involved party. The property I do own, besides my house in Woodstock, where I am a voter and legally a resident of Woodstock, I own 24 acres in the town of Saugerties, and I plan to go make some noise as a property owner and taxpayer to the town of Saugerties. So to me, I think what they're doing is horrible. And as a person, I'm an involved person. As a town, from a legal standpoint, our lawyer has indicated that we cannot, that by law, we're not an involved party. And Jen Metzger herself, who is very environmentally focused, has said New York State is a home rule town, home rule state. So she's not going to jump in and tell Saugerties what to do because it's a home rule state. But I do need to call the engineer, Army Corps of Engineer, whatever, because I'm looking for somebody who says, hey, we got to look at the big picture here. The impact is crossing borders, even though every expert of Terramore says it's not going to cross borders. I think their experts are very slick and they're paid to say what supports the project. And so I do plan to make noise. As a person, I'm an involved person. As a town, I don't believe legally we can be considered an involved party. Based on what I saw from our lawyer.
And
We're
do
an
you
interested
think,
party.
Laura, would you say it's correct or incorrect to say that then as a town, and I don't mean your personal opinion,
Right.
how you feel, that the town is interested or not interested in trying to figure out what they can do as a town?
Bennett and I are both active.
Okay.
Nobody's said no. Nobody has told us no. Bill is moving our town board meetings so that I can be going to so Bennett and I can both be going to the other meetings. So I believe the town is supportive of us being active. But just like we would throw them out of Woodstock if they came into our town and told us what to do, I understand them wanting to, we can't just go, we can't try to beat them over the head. We can't force them because they're peers. And we don't want them telling us how to run our town, and they're not going to want us telling them how to run their town. So it's tricky to be influential given this home rule status and given that we have not qualified for involved party status.
Okay.
But we
I
can
would
still make
hope that we
noise.
wouldn't kick them out if they had some really important things to tell us about something.
Oh, they
we were
could tell
doing.
us whatever they want
But-
to tell us, but
but
they
okay.
can't make us do stuff. They can't make us. But yeah, we would listen. But
All right.
yeah, there's a.
So
I'm not done
that's
yet.
good
Let's
to
put it this way.
know.
So as regarding fighting it, I'm not done yet. Let's just say that.
All right. So that's good to know in terms of like what we are interested in doing with this. But I will let you guys go for tonight. It's 8:36. Thank you.
Good night, guys.
I wish we could do them on Zoom all the time. All right.
Feel better.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks all.
Thank you.